talking with Jesse Cannon, who runs Brooklyn Recording Paradise, a recording studio, obviously in Brooklyn, and also is my business partner here at Podstream Studios, Times Square, here in New York City. And we're talking just about his journey kind of creating multiple studios and moving around, having to pivot, having to hire employees, which a lot of times in this kind of industry is more freelancers. And as we're just talking about, a lot of those people have things that they're doing outside of this space. And so you were kind of touching on it, in what you were just saying, but how do you then get them to, let me also back up and say, recording spaces tend to be a little bit more lax than your normal, professional spaces. We're wearing jeans and hoodie t-shirt right now. But
I call this dressed up.
I was gonna say, this is actually dressed up for us right now. Even I come in here in sweatpants half the time. The professionalism isn't necessarily the same as other businesses, but how do you still maintain professionalism within the work, or in terms of how we are dealing with clients, or just anything around the office? How do you balance professionalism versus kind of that casual culture that recording spaces have?
The answer is that you have to make the border of that the lack of professionalism has to be when there's 0 clients even in the building. I think we all want to have fun, we all want to have things, and you have to feel a vibe for each person, but you also have to really, a lot of the clients will do really unprofessional things. They'll want an environment that's a little chaotic, they're a little weird, they're going to say crazy things, but you have to be, while you could probably meet them at their level, it's usually best to shy away from that. And that's the thing we encourage here, is that you need to be I always say, I try to be the most boring person in a room, because I don't want to outshine. I host my own things, I have my own YouTube channel as well. I don't want to outshine the guests, I don't want to be the star of the show, I want to just be somebody who they can kind of forget about, but also leave a good impression. And I think that's really the thing, is you don't want to say the most outlandish thing, you don't want to, you can be the poorest dressed because they're on camera, but you also need to really be that person who's the rock and hold it down. The thing I tell people all the time is I love to drink. I have regularly drank I've drank on 2 sessions, and I've been working in this for 24 years. Wow. I just refuse to do it. I come to work and I take my work seriously, and when I'm not at work, then I enjoy stuff. But it's also because we have to remember what people are hiring you for, which is to be the most professional person who's overseeing this all, not to be a part of the party. What the money is for is you're there to be the person who makes sure the party goes okay.
Yeah, and that someone's recording it.
Yeah. And truthfully, one of those 2 sessions, I've almost never erased anything. I had 1 beer, so I wasn't even drunk. I have much higher tolerance to that, and I made a mistake, and I was see, this is why you don't do this.
Yep.
It's I was in a different headspace, and I was in the wrong headspace, and I've almost never erased anything, and then I had to stay late, fix it, so the band never heard it. Thank God they played that part twice in the song, so I could copy and paste it over.
Which, only having drank twice on the job, I know to the people who are not in, say, the entertainment space, that might sound oh, that's super easy. When you're in these sessions that, people are smoking, they're drinking, and they're offering you stuff. It's really tough sometimes, because you also want them to feel like you're part of the crew, so they feel comfortable with you. So, sometimes you want to take that drink just to make them feel a little bit more comfortable.
That's exactly right. What I always tell people is when people see Mad Men, they're God, all they do is drink. It's you should see a recording studio.
When it comes to, you were kind of mentioning just in the people who are at the studio, but you're also a freelancer. So yes. I think this pertains to both, where sometimes you work with clients that aren't always on their best behavior. Oh, yeah. And they will talk to you any kind of way, especially because they know that they're paying you. And so they feel again, they can just treat you any way they want to. How do you work with that? How do you still try to be professional and at the same time hold your ground, especially if it might affect what the recording is going to be?
There's an interesting thing the producer Rick Rubin talks about, which is he talks about that attention to detail and professionalism, people rise to the level most of the time. But the problem is that some people are coming from a level that's so below ground and, just living in the depths of polluted seas of their personality that even them coming up to your level when you're behaving well is still bad behavior. And the key is that you have to do that. When somebody I can see is, as we call in the business, a punisher, that think that part of your rate is for them to punish you, you have to sit there and remain calm and professional. You can tell them that their behavior is getting out of line, that is very in bounds, but my thing, we curse here?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yes.
okay. I tell people all day, and you've heard this before, it's not the most polite way to say this, but I sometimes call this type of work the manure farm, because your job is to eat shit. Your job is, you're being paid to deal with all the bad complaints. You are the complaint box. You are the thing, because it's very easy to lose your empathy towards people because some of the things are so small or annoying, or they're even just have bad taste and bad vision. You have to remember you're being paid to make someone's vision happen. Sometimes you're being paid to contribute to that vision, help get it to a better place. But at the end of the day, you're still being paid because someone has a dream or an aspiration and they're trying to make it come true. And you're being paid to facilitate that through their lack of knowledge of how to do it or their lack of equipment to do it. And you have to remember that at all times and maintain a professional attitude. And I smile through it all. As you know, when we've had nightmare clients, you have to take it seriously that this person's just trying to be happy, and that's what they're paying you for.
And to your point, it's their vision, it's their intellectual property, their content. You're just there to help record it and again, give them that professional equipment and skill set. But at times, you do have to kind of step in and say, well, this isn't going to look right. You're going to be upset if we shoot it this way, so why don't we try this? But you still have to let them make the final decision.
Yes. You made a great point here that one of the things I instill in everybody is that give a suggestion once. If they are making the worst mistake, if you really think that they're going to do something they're going to regret, you could say a second time. But I would reserve those second times to no more than once or twice for every suggestion you're going through. You need to leave one of those on the cutting room floor usually and just not pursue it. But you could say a second time, you can push back. But if they say, no, this is what I want, after 2 times, you have to be over it. You have to move on and go through with the mistake. And try, as somebody who has some clients that are 24 years in, the amount of times I get an email, let's call it half a decade later, that I was right about something on a record that they're listening back to, well, I can't say it's not 20, 30, 40 times that that's happened, but that's their choice and that's part of the process.
Yeah. Well, basically what you touched on is picking your battles too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so you're picking your battles with clients, but also sometimes you have to pick your battles with your own team, whether you're managing up or down. But we'll just put it in the context of you running businesses. So how do you pick your battles when it comes to your team, especially knowing that they're part-time employees, they have other things going on, they're using this hopefully as a stepping stone to something bigger for themselves. How do you pick those battles with your own team members?
The first thing I think we have to remember is you need to have a lot of thought before you talk to an employee about where they're at the time. They can be really overworked because you've been booking them on crazy hours. They worked last weekend. Now may not be the time to broach that, they're wearing a shirt with a curse word on it very, very regularly in front of some very tight-ass clients. It's probably gonna fly. We're in New York City where there's a shirt that says "fuck you, you fucking fuck" being sold downstairs. Like, they've seen worse. Let's take that up another day. But I try to go through the process of instead of thinking of me and my frustration towards it first, of I write it down in my notes app. One of the most important things I learned with to-do apps is to actually have to-dos for each person in your life, so that when you see them. So a good example is there was been times where you and I are traveling and I'll have the list of, okay, next time I see Chris, we got to talk about these 4 things in person. That stuff is really, really helpful to do so that you pick your battles, but it still gets done at the time. And then the other thing to remember too is that some people respond only to really serious sit-downs. Some people respond really well to casual, just like, oh, by the way, the other day you were picking your nose and wiping it, real thing I've had to do. That's the client's equipment that you wiped it on. You can wipe it on your own. That's between you and yourself, but not their equipment, please. That's a little weird. Real thing I've had to do. And then some people needed to be so loving. I had a business partner that I raised my voice at him, and this is a partner in business, he started crying. And I had to hug him, and I don't want to do that. Not that I'm not fine with a man-to-man hug from time to time, but I don't want our business interactions to be like that. You gotta learn how they hear feedback best. You gotta learn what level of kids' gloves versus some people just don't hear if it's casual. They need to be told, this is really serious, you're messing up really badly, and they need to be talked firmly to, or else they just are like, it's not important.
Yeah.
So I pick those battles and I consider how they're gonna hear the message.